The biggest fantasy football draft weekend of the year is upon us. And this week, we have been making sure you are well prepped with our final running back rankings, wide receiver rankings, quarterback rankings. And now today, we're wrapping it up with our top 30 tight end rankings and tiers for 2025 fantasy football. Now, Ty, the tight end position is always fascinating because it's not always super easy to predict. If it's one thing that influences tight end fantasy points, it's simply volume, receptions, and yards after the catch. If we have any predictive analytic for tight ends, it's yards per route run, and even that is like weary sometimes at best. What we know about the three guys in the S tier, Brock Bowers, Trey McBride, George Kittle, they are borderline focal points, if not the focal points of their offense, and you know they're going to get the volume every single season. Is this how you have these top three guys ranked? Brock Bowers, Trey McBride, George Kittle?
I go Brock Bowers, George Kittle, and Trey McBride, personally.
Yeah, I really don't mind that call at all, mostly because when you look at the 49ers weapons going into the season, like George Kittle's somehow top of the pecking order at the most healthy coming into this year, depending on how you want to view Chris McCaffrey and the amount of injuries he's compiled throughout his career. Yet then again, George Kittle has compiled quite a few of his own. Out of these three, which one is your favorite to draft? Because admittedly, I'm avoiding a lot of the guys we're going to be talking about in the A tier. And I'm just kind of skipping over that tier and even some of the B tier. And I would either rather have a guy in the S tier or I'd rather have a guy in the late B tier, early C tier.
I would agree with that. Out of this tier, I kind of have like two answers. If I'm being a smart drafter, it's George Kittle, just because he's the cheapest of the three. But if I'm going like pure vibes, it's Brock Bowers, personally.
You're not concerned about the preseason usage with Michael Mayer rotating in.
I think we're just looking for something to be concerned about, because let's be honest, is there anybody besides Christian McCaffrey that people are like super, or like there's a point that people are afraid of when it comes to anybody within like the first 15 to 20 picks? Honestly, I can't really find anybody. Everyone just talks about the positives. So I feel like Brock Bowers was the casualty because he's a tight end. And so we're going to try to nitpick at any single thing to give something to complain about.
I have been not an outspoken Brock Bowers critic, because I haven't been a critic at all. I've just simply been saying I'm not drafting him at his cost when I can draft George Kittle a full round and a half later, who was the actual tight end one in fantasy points per game last year. Like, to me, that's a no-brainer. Like, why would I draft Brock Bowers at cost when I can draft George Kittle at cost, who could give me just as many fantasy points as Brock Bowers this year, right? Like, that's all I'm trying to say. Brock Bowers is a perfectly fine pick. He should be going no later than the end of your second round. If he slides into the third round, he is an immediate scoop him up value. But my philosophy all summer long has been, why would I draft either of these two in Trey McBride, Brock Bowers, when I can draft George Kittle a full round or round and a half later than both of them? I like all three of these guys. I would gladly take any of these three guys on my team. And we've been talking a lot all off season long, Ty, about how much we love George Kittle in this 49ers offense. So if you haven't been paying attention to our content all summer, hit that subscribe button and turn on that notification bell as well, so you know when all of our newest content goes up during the season. Not only do we hope to provide you some league-winning advice, help you bring home that trophy this year, but we want to remind you of the fun and camaraderie that comes with playing fake football with your friends. It was a bonding point for Ty Cameron and I throughout college. We've now taken it into our post-college days as well. It's still one of the most unifying elements of our friendship. So again, we want to help you win your leagues, but we want to remind you of how much fun fantasy football is as well. Let's move on to the A tier, Ty. A little bit smaller of a tier, only two guys here. You got Mr. Engagement himself, Travis Kelce, and you've got absolutely six stash Sam Laporta.
Wait, is that his headshot for the year?
That is his headshot for the year. If you're not on YouTube, this is just another plug. If you're an audio listener, to go subscribe on YouTube, because that is a legit updated stash from Sam Laporta, and it is a gnarly thing.
How is he not in our S tier? If I saw the stats, he would have immediately gone into S tier.
Mustache alone, he should be be in the S tier. Can I be honest though? I don't want either of these guys in my fantasy teams this year, despite them being our next highest ranked tight ends. I don't want either of them.
It's fair. I think the mindset viewpoint that I've always had when it comes to fantasy football is that every player has a price. It's just a matter of if they're overpriced or underpriced. And I think both of these guys currently where they go in drafts, being the tight end 4, tight end 5, maybe tight end 6, depending on what platform you're on, they are just kind of at the top of the tier of everyone else, I'll call it, because it is the S tier. And then you could honestly say that like A through E then is everyone else. I feel like I'm okay scooping them up if they start falling in my drafts.
Yep.
But if you're looking at just the cost of these guys, and when you're on the clock and they're like at the top of your board because they are the next guy up on the draft board, I'm pretty 10 times out of 10. I'm passing them up.
The thing is, we've always seen these 4th, 5th round tight ends just not produce for you in years past. It's been when Kyle Pitts. I mean, sorry, we don't have Kyle Pitts on our S tier. Probably the biggest mistake that we made on this list was not putting Kyle Pitts in the S tier. But like Kyle Pitts 2 years ago, he's a great example of this. Was going in the 4th, 5th round of drafts, massively disappointed you. Guys like Mark Andrews last year, strong second half of the season, scored a crap ton of touchdowns, but boy, that looked like a pick that was absolutely going to scorch you in the 4th, 5th rounds of your drafts. I just think there's too many other valuable depth pieces that you could be adding to your team. And drafting a Travis Kelce and Sam Laporta just doesn't give you enough of an advantage when you have to skip over guys like Travion Henderson, when you have to skip over guys like George Pickens, when you have to skip over guys, name another player that's going in the 4th. I just think there's so much value in that range of players that it doesn't make sense for me to take a Travis Kelce or a Sam Laporta when I don't think they can give me S tier production. And that's what I want that early in my drafts. This might be a stupid question, Ty. Is there any legitimacy in your mind that Travis Kelce being engaged now, getting in tip-top shape,
word,
does the engagement factor into his season at all? We have to ask it. Is he distracted? Is he in the best shape of his career? Maybe it's a dumb question making people click off of this video, but do you think people will use it as a reason that he either stinks or is like, wow, Travis Kelce looking really cut? Must be the engagement.
Okay, look,
people will use it.
They use it just like they use like new dad energy, right? Like Brock Purdy, JJ McCarthy, like right below that is engagement shape. And look, I don't put any merit into it when I'm drafting.
You're not buying into it.
I'm not. But I feel like if there is one thing that again, you brought up the goofy question, the serious talking point, if there is one for Kelce, is the Rashee Rice suspension for 6 games. Like, do we see a mini resurgence of Travis Kelce out of the gate?
Right.
Possibly, because they kind of need him to. But it wouldn't surprise me if we then get into second half of the year where it is just a kind of up and down week by week thing where Travis Kelce is going to be super hard to rely on just because he's another year older, wear and tear, all that stuff. So that's the one point to consider when you are looking at Kelce in your drafts.
I 100% agree. I think the Rashee Rice suspension could lend a little bit of extra runway for Travis Kelce, but as soon as Rashee Rice comes back, people think it's going to come at the cost of like Xavier Worthy. I'm willing to bet it's at the cost of Travis Kelce. And maybe it doesn't even come at a cost. Maybe the Chiefs offense finally finds their groove again, but it's one of the big reasons why I'm just going to skip over Travis Kelce here, mostly because of age, but also I don't think we can get a full like top 5 tight end season out of Travis Kelce. Sam Laporta, what do you make of the new offense? How does he fit into the John Morton system? How do you see his usage within this structure? Last season, only a 15.3% target share. That was only 15th of all tight ends in the league. Where do you land on that?
I don't think that we can look at Laporta as a volume play. I think we learned a lot last year. Obviously, he battled his own injuries, but the Jameson Williams emergence in the offense and for all the positive buzz that's coming out about Jameson this year, your hope for Laporta is that he just becomes an absolute red zone monster. I don't think he's necessarily the biggest threat after the catch. So if we're not going to get super big volume, we're not going to get super big plays after the catch, you're banking on touchdowns. And Detroit's offense should be one of the highest scoring units in the league still. But again, we've talked about it plenty. We're not expecting 70 touchdowns out of this unit again.
No.
So I think Laporta carries the risk. It's just a different kind of risk compared to what it was last year. But regardless, I don't have the most confidence in Laporta this year, again, for those reasons.
He's tied for the 4th most touchdowns of all tight ends last year. He caught 7 of them. Andrews led the league with 11. Is it possible we get a 9-10 touchdown season out of Laporta? Sure. But again, I've always been of the conviction that something has to give in this Detroit Lions offense. If Jahmyr Gibbs is going to take a step forward, if Sam Laporta is going to bounce back, if Amon-Ra St. Brown is still going to be a staple, if Isaac Tesla now, who is making a name for himself, if he's going to be an emerging piece in this offense, like something has to give at some point if people are saying the offense is going to regress. And I'm worried. Like, I'm not saying Sam Laporta is going to be the sacrifice of that, but boy, it's hard to justify drafting him as a tight end 4 when that's probably like his ceiling this year, if we're all being perfectly honest. Let's move it on to the B tier because I'm more interested in a few of the guys here in the B tier, and I know you are as well. The B tier is TJ Hawkinson, Evan Ingram, Mark Andrews, David Njoku, Tucker Kraft, Tyler Warren. TJ Hawkinson's a fascinating one because there's a lot of shifting pieces here with the Minnesota Vikings. You've got a new quarterback in JJ McCarthy. You've got TJ Hawkinson coming back for now a fully healthy season after he came back well into the year last year. You've got Jordan Addison on a 3-game suspension. The Vikings just brought home Adam Thielen for basically a net value of a 4th-round pick. Where does TJ Hawkinson fit into this offense? I came out much lower on him than I actually expected. At the start of the summer, he was one of my most drafted players because he went in a range of players from like, well, no, duh, I want to collect TJ Hawkinson here. But after I saw how he came up with my projections, I really had to take a step back and say, okay, but where do I actually see TJ Hawkinson fitting into this offense? I just don't know if it's going to be as productive as his top 3 tight end season from 2 years ago.
I would agree with that. I think he is still going to get a decent amount of volume just when you look at this offense, in at least out of the beginning, right? Like, I feel like Hawkinson has the opportunity to still finish second in targets in this offense, even with Thielen and Addison when everyone's playing together. My concern is still going to be touchdowns for him. I'm not sure exactly that TJ Hawkinson is going to be the guy getting the looks when they get into the red zone when you have Justin Jefferson, Jordan Addison, and now an improved run game. So for almost the same reasons that I have for Jordan Addison, where I'm not taking Addison because of all the change that should happen in this offense and just the amount of mouths to feed here now, at the cost of TJ Hawkinson, I'm not taking a whole lot of him. I still think he's a great player. But when I just look at it through a fantasy lens, I just go, it's kind of rich. And we're probably taking him where his ceiling is ultimately going to end up being that like tight end 5, tight end 6 type of guy.
The thing that he thrived on in his 2023 season as well was the volume. How much he was involved with this Minnesota Vikings offense. And I hate being the guy where it's like, oh, there's so many mouths to feed. But again, this is just one where something has to give here with the Minnesota Vikings offense. When they beef up the interior of their offensive line, people are thinking they're going to shift to a more balanced approach. Like TJ Hawkinson just isn't going to get the same amount of volume as he did, when it was him and Justin Jefferson basically running the show, and Addison was just finally starting to get some runway in this offense. So yeah, I'm a little bit concerned having TJ Hawkinson this high. He comes out in my consensus, or in our consensus rankings, excuse me. I mean, he comes out as my tight end 9 and your tight end 9 as well. Really, so this ranking is just beefed up by Cameron's ranking, who still thinks he's a top 5 tight end. And that's, again, Cameron isn't here to defend himself, but you and I are willing to be out on TJ Hawkinson rather than be in on TJ Hawkinson. You're not willing to be out on Evan Ingram, though.
Yeah,
Talk to the people about Evan Ingram. Right? We've talked about him on a few previous episodes, but you are aggressively drafting Evan Ingram. I'm not quite behind you.
So first, let's talk about the Evan Ingram fit in this Sean Payton offense. I'm expecting more downfield shots compared to what we've been seeing with Evan Ingram, at least in Jacksonville, especially like am mainly referring to the 140 target year that he got. What was it? 23, 22, 23, I think it was. I don't think that's the type of Evan Ingram that we're getting. But because we are getting a more downfield Evan Ingram in what I'm expecting to be one of the better offenses in the league with Denver, I don't mind the cost of Evan Ingram right now. He's the tight end 8 in most of your redraft leagues. I'm okay with that because I think that when you look at the Denver hierarchy, it's Courtland Sutton and then it's Evan Ingram. Like Evan Ingram has a clear path to being the number 2 guy with an opportunity to be kind of the downfield yards after the catch kind of guy. The question then is going to be touchdowns, but at least like if I'm going to directly compare him with TJ Hawkinson, I'm expecting both of these guys to get a decent amount of volume, but I'm expecting Evan Ingram to get more yards after the catch opportunity than I am for TJ Hawkinson. That's why I'm finding myself taking more Evan Ingram. I know a lot of people are saying, depending on the platform, like he's going as early as tight end 7, tight end 6, even. That's going to be a little rich, but I can find the value of Evan Ingram because the other part of this too, the tight end 8 is kind of the awkward draft spot for tight ends because no one really wants to take the next tight end after the top 6 or 7 are off the board. So you're going to see a bit of a dip, and I will scoop up that dip 9 times out of 10.
So, okay, so that's helpful context that you see Evan Ingram in more of a yards after catch role within the Sean Payton offense. That I can get behind a little bit more. And as I was going back and combing through where I actually have Evan Ingram, I was shocked at how low I had his yardage total for, but then I realized, oh, that's because I'm not taking into account the amount of yards after a catch he could be racking up as well. So he comes out as my tight end 11. I'm not too far off from ADP, but when I bring up that yards per target, when you factor in the run after catch yardage into that as well, that will bring him up in my projections, probably to right around ADP. I don't think I'll be ahead of ADP on Evan Ingram, but you're right. Within his role in this Denver Broncos offense, it is a relatively safe pick to make. I don't think Evan Ingram is going to blow the ceiling off of your roster this year. But if you punt tight end for a while, he's really not the worst guy you can pick up after the likes of TJ Hawkinson, Mark Andrews, who's coming off the board before him as well. I believe Tyler Warren is coming off the board ahead of Evan Ingram too, right? Like I don't hate passing on those guys and just waiting to take Evan Ingram instead. Mark Andrews, let's move on to him. We haven't talked about him much this offseason, but I think it's worth talking about him when Isaiah Likely, I believe he's still pacing to not be ready for week 1. It seems he's questionable for week 1 at this point. You also have to take into account the fact he's dealing with a foot injury. There's a possibility that lingers a few weeks into the season. Could we only get a 75% Isaiah Likely for the first 4 weeks of the season? You have to factor in, well, Mark Andrews might only be the only red zone guy here for the Baltimore Ravens. I mean, you got DeAndre Hopkins added to this team, but I don't know, man. It's easy to look back at the start of last year for Mark Andrews and just immediately get PTSD when you click him on the board and remember how bad he was. I just think he's in a much better situation to enter into this year where, 1, he hasn't been in a car accident this offseason. 2, his running mates is now dealing with an injury, probably won't be 100% ready for week 1 as well. And 3, the Baltimore Ravens red zone passing attack runs through the tight ends on this team. So to me, there's a world where we could see Mark Andrews score another 10 touchdowns this year.
To clarify, 10 total, not like 10 on top of what we saw last year, because that would be absurd.
Yes, sorry. Yes, 10 this year when he had 11 last year. Yes, good clarification.
Yeah, we're not expecting 20 touchdowns from literally anybody this year. Any skill player that I should clarify on that. But
yeah, right.
I think your hope for Mark Andrews, right? Like you can expect the touchdowns to still be relatively high for Andrews. Not sure if he's going to exactly lead tight ends in the touchdown category this year, but if he's going to give you 8 or 9 touchdowns, that's going to be great. The hope then is, can we see the bounce back in volume? Because 69 targets last year, not great. Not great. If we can get the bounce back in targets, Mark Andrews might be one of the best values then when it comes to tight ends, because touchdowns and the volume that he would get back, the guy could easily find himself back into the top 5. And then we're sitting here next year going like, how are we so dumb on Mark Andrews? And we're valuing him as probably the tight end 4 then at that point.
Every tight end that scored 7+ touchdowns last year finished as a top 10 tight end overall. So like that's what I feel like you're getting from Mark Andrews. If you can get 7 to 8 touchdowns from him, you're locking in a top 10 tight end automatically. So the fact that you can get him as like the tight end 7, like, again, I'm not like, he's not one of the guys I'm most excited to click, but would I rather wait on a Mark Andrews than draft a Travis Kelce or a Sam Laporta? Like I think I would, because I'm thinking I can bet on more touchdowns from Mark Andrews this year. And if instead of only 69 targets this year, at the start of the year, we see a little bit of a bump to that, we get closer to 80, 85 targets for Mark Andrews this year. Like it's a case where again, he's no longer this S tier option in this Baltimore Ravens offense, but could he finish ahead of the guys in the A tier this year? Absolutely. I absolutely think he could. So Mark Andrews, I think, is still a perfectly fine click. I want to know your thoughts on David Njoku, though. Now that we know that Joe Flacco is the starting quarterback in Cleveland, that's the one thing that we have been waiting for. David Njoku was phenomenal with Joe Flacco 2 seasons ago. I'm going to go back and fact check myself on this while you explain your thoughts on David Njoku. I'm about 90% sure he was a top 3 tight end with Joe Flacco in 2023.
I'm the lowest on David Njoku out of the 3 of us. He's my tight end 12. He's Lucas's tight end 6, Cam's tight end 8. The reason why I'm so low is because I can almost guarantee that we are going to be suffering in the touchdown department with David Njoku.
Yes,
now, that's not to say
will.
that
that's a fact.
It's a fact. He will give volume. That's the kind of the counterpoint to that. Where my concern then lies for David Njoku is, well, how many games of Joe Flacco are we exactly getting? What's to say that we're not going to get Dylan Gabriel by week 9, week 10? Some people may fact check me and go, well, the Browns actually have a week 10 bye, so no, there's not a quarterback in a week 10. Whatever. You get my point. Like, what's to say that we don't get Dylan Gabriel earlier than we expect? What's to say that we don't get Shedeur Sanders earlier than we expect? I just think the revolving door of quarterback scares me, and knowing that we're not going to get touchdowns. So let me rephrase this. With the revolving door of quarterbacks, I'm worried that the hope on volume takes a hit because of whatever reason. Inexperience at quarterback, offense takes a step back, whatever it may be. I just find myself going, there's a lot on the line here for Njoku. Wouldn't surprise me if he still manages his way to be in a top 7, top 8 guy, because again, the volume is going to be crucial for him.
4 games, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 5 games with Joe Flacco in 2023. David Njoku, the tight end 1 overall, averaging 15.2 fantasy points per game in half PPR formats. Caught 30 of his 45 targets for 390 yards, 13 yards of reception, and 4 touchdowns in that span. I'm not copying and pasting that. Don't hear what I'm not saying. But Joe Flacco isn't afraid to chuck the football. People will say he's not a gunslinger anymore. I just think Joe Flacco is willing to take risks. He's willing to push the football, and he clearly was willing to check it down to the tight end of this Kevin Stefanski offense and get the ball into David Njoku's hands. So I've always been the most optimistic on David Njoku out of the 3 of us. Again, I look at what a TJ Hawkinson could provide me, as an Evan Ingram can provide me, and I'm just like, why can't David Njoku provide me that? Sure, on a worse offense, but he might out volume all of them and finish as a top 5 guy this year. He's been a top 7 tight end in points per game the last 2 seasons. Like, at some point, we just have to accept the trend is that David Njoku could end up being a top 7 guy this year. And if Joe Flacco's at quarterback, I'm willing to invest in Njoku at the tight end 12. He's currently going off the board. He's the easiest punt tight end candidate for me. I just scoop him up later. Let's move on to Tucker Kraft of the Green Bay Packers. I know I was super bullish on him. I brought him down in my projections and skyrocketed Matthew Golden up my rankings. But Tucker Kraft is just kind of the definition of a guy where you click on him for your team and you're just like, yeah, he's fine. He's not going to win me a league, but he'll fill my spot every week and give me 7 points.
You're right. You don't look at Tucker Kraft and you go, league winner. I don't do that. I bet the majority of people don't do that. But at least that when you look at Tucker Kraft, because we got flashes of it last year, there is yards after the catch potential and there's touchdown potential.
Yep.
And like we said, like those are some of the most important stats that you can look on when it comes to tight ends. And Tucker Kraft meets every one of those. And also helps too that the team has said, like, we want to make Tucker Kraft a mainstay in this offense. So, I mean, it doesn't feel sexy to take Tucker Kraft. But I do have confidence that Tucker Kraft, despite the unprovenness, that's not a word, but you know what I mean, of Tucker Kraft, that he can come through this year.
Also, sneaky high yards per route run last year. He was 7th of all tight ends in yards per route run. He ran 1.9 yards per route. Just for context, the only guys ahead of him, George Kittle, who ran an absurd 2.88. Goodness, 2.88 yards per route. Spit it out, Lucas. Dallas Goedert was up there, but then Trey McBride, Johnny Smith, Brock Bowers, Mark Andrews. That's some pretty darn good company to be in terms of yards per route run. So if Tucker Kraft is getting a similar role within this offense, similar usage, but the passing volume only goes up, which is what I'm projecting for this offense, Tucker Kraft isn't going to be a guy who loses you your league. I think Tucker Kraft is going to be a guy where you take him and it's like, yeah, I just plug him in. He's not going to elevate me like a Brock Bowers or a George Kittle, but at cost, I don't have to invest in a Travis Kelce, a Sam Laporta, a TJ Hawkinson. I can just draft a Tucker Kraft and he might give me top 7 numbers this year, right? Because the tight end position is just one big crapshoot at the end of the day. And Tucker Kraft, I don't think is a guy who's going to lose you your league. Tyler Warren, though, I'm not going to say he can lose you your league. I really, really like Tyler Warren, the player. I love his fit with Shane Steichen. I just don't love the offense of the Indianapolis Colts. That's the hardest thing I have trouble getting behind with Tyler Warren. I've had to up my exposure to him on Underdog because I was underexposed and I wanted to make sure I had Tyler Warren shares in case he does have a really, really, really solid rookie season. But man, it's tough to see a massive path forward for Tyler Warren. To me, he has a range of outcomes of like tight end 8 at his tip top to like tight end 18 as his floor. He feels like one of these guys in this range with such a wide variation of outcomes.
He's the boom bust tight end this year.
Yeah, 100%.
Because there is the upside case of, yeah, for as much as people like Michael Pittman and as much as people like Josh Downs, Shane Steichen might just go, Tyler Warren is going to be our guy. So he might just get like Trey McBride treatment in some ways. And that way he's going to finish closer to 5. At the same time, quarterback problems and revolving door there. He doesn't get the volume and he just kind of gets lost in the sauce of it all. He finishes closer to, like you said, like the tight end 18. So I think there's an appropriate price for Tyler Warren. I know there are some people that would be willing to kind of stake their claim and kind of plant their flag on Tyler Warren. That's on them. I personally wouldn't, but I also don't mind the player that is Tyler Warren.
No, I don't either. The Trey McBride treatment sounds like the Gucci luxurious treatment, which is like a 0.01 or 0.1% outcome for Tyler Warren this year. True. When you talk about the Trey McBride treatment, I think you named it in terms of like Josh Allen and Michael Pittman, where it's like, no, actually the main guy is Tyler Warren. Like he's probably the best receiving weapon that we actually have on this team. And I will say, I want to be careful with how this comes across. Having Daniel Jones at quarterback is probably a better thing for Tyler Warren, not from a necessarily quality of quarterback perspective, but the way in which these quarterbacks target the
pass the ball.
Yes, right. I mean, Anthony Richardson, there's a reason why Alec Pierce was thriving under Anthony Richardson. It's because Anthony Richardson would just launch moon balls to him and Alec Pierce would go get him. Right? That doesn't favor the tight end who's much closer to the line of scrimmage, right? So I think Daniel Jones has a better ability to facilitate Tyler Warren the ball than Anthony Richardson does. So that's probably a pro. But again, I'm just of the essence where like Tyler Warren's ceiling is probably like the tight end 6 this year, which isn't bad. But I could also see it where the Colts are just so bad of a football team and so bad of a passing attack where he finishes closer to the tight end 18, as I mentioned instead. We had a whole group of other tight ends to cover here, Ty. We'll probably breeze through them, but now's your last chance to get in over on Underdog. They have closed slow drafts at this point. It is only fast drafts against real people for real money to win millions of dollars in prizes. So if you want to get your reps in and, enter your chance to win a few $1,000s along the way, we'll take a break here from our friends at Underdog. Today's show is brought to you by our friends over at Underdog, home of Best Ball Mania 6. There are $15 million in prizes up for grabs, with $2 million going to first place and another $1 million going to second place. Entering is super easy. You join a draft with 11 other people, select your team, and Underdog will automatically generate your highest scoring lineup each week. Essentially, you get all the fun of drafting with zero stress of making the wrong decision on who to start. Underdog hosts a variety of other contests as well, ranging from $3 entries to $500 entries, so there's something for everybody's pocketbook. If you're not on Underdog yet, use the code FELLAS when you sign up, because they'll give you up to $1,000 in bonus credits to play with, and we'll give you our 2025 draft guide for free. Again, that's code FELLAS over on Underdog. Now let's get you back to the rest of the show. Alrighty, Ty, let's dive into the next tier of tight ends here. Colston Loveland, Jake Ferguson, Dallas Goedert, Dalton Kincaid, Hunter Henry, Zach Ertz. Good old Kyle Pitts cracks this tier. I don't want to spend too much time on these tiers, because at this point in your fantasy football drafts, outside of Colston Loveland, I can't in my right mind tell you that you should be taking any of these guys as your only tight end on your team. When you're looking at a Jake Ferguson, a Dallas Goedert, a Dalton Kincaid, a Hunter Henry, they're like quality tight end twos for your team. But Colston Loveland at the top of this tier, I think you and I might be in agreement. In a perfect world, he's actually moved up to the B tier just based on his upside alone.
I would agree with that. He's actually my tight end 10. So if I were to make the tiers my own, Loveland is definitely in the B tier. And he is probably going to be one of my most drafted tight ends this year, just because sure, it is a risky bet to bet on the rookie tight ends, despite the success that we've seen in recent years from rookie tight ends. I just see this Chicago passing game as a wide open opportunity for Colston Loveland to really kind of step up as maybe not the number one guy, just because there is still good talent around him, but he can be a number two guy in what can be a high scoring offense by the end of the year. And I look at that team and I go, well, if it's not going to be DeAndre Swift running in the ball, and maybe Kyle Monangai isn't going to be the thumper that everyone wants him to be, myself included. I'm kind of saying that for myself.
Sure.
But like, how are you going to score the ball? And honestly, Roma Dunze and Colston Loveland are great red zone threats.
They're your biggest red zone threats.
Yep. So, and on top of that, Colston Loveland as a playmaker after the catch is one of the best that we've seen in recent memory. So there is a lot of positive. And when you look at, like, again, the specifics of the tight end position between the volume, the yards after the catch, and the touchdowns, Colston Loveland has a path for all three to come to fruition this year.
The Chicago Bears drafted 10th overall in the NFL draft this year. They beefed up their offensive line during the offseason. They brought in Ben Johnson to really fix things for this offense. What everybody thought they needed was a running back. Ashton Genty was off the board, sure, but Amarian Hampton still was taken in the first round. Chicago Bears could have traded back, but no, they invested in Colston Loveland. And let's not forget Ben Johnson, manufactured a tight end 1 overall season for Sam Laporta not that long ago. Tight end 3 points per game, but Colston Loveland is, in my mind, a much better prospect than Sam Laporta. He was actually a top 7 prospect for me in this year's class.
And do you know what Ben Johnson's position coaching spot was before he was the offensive coordinator in Detroit?
Go ahead, tell people.
He was the tight ends coach.
He knows a thing or two about the position, believe it or not. So with the draft capital invested in Colston Loveland, he to me, again, going tight end 12, if not later in your home leagues, one of the perfect guys. I'm okay just like punting, taking the shot on, and I probably will pair another tight end like a Hunter Henry with a Colston Loveland just to make sure I have some insurance early on in the season, because it does typically take longer for these year 1 tight ends to adapt to the league. We typically don't see them break out till year 2, 3, 4 in the league. But man, it seems like Colston Loveland could be on a fast track here to be like the next Sam Laporta. And I hate making it that simple of an equation, but we've all kind of been waiting for that guy, and Brock Bowers just blew our expectations out of the water. I think it's much more likely Colson Lovell could have a Sam Laporta-esque season coming in to this year. And once again, I blame Cameron for putting Colson Lovell in the B tier for us. I'm just going to out him and rag him in this whole video because he's not here to defend himself. So Cam has Colson Loveland ranked the lowest out of you and I both have him as a top 12 tight end. So you and I are in agreement here. Colson Loveland could be a phenomenal pick in your drafts this year. Out of Jake Ferguson, Dallas Goedert, Dalton Kincaid, those are next 3 in ADP order. Do you have one that you prefer out of those 3? Maybe that's all. I'll decide who we talk about here, because I don't want to dive too deep into these guys when they're not even going to be starting on most managers' rosters.
Yeah, it's probably going to be Jake Ferguson. Which is kind of weird to say that I'm going to take the tight end in the worst offense of the 3 because it's again Dallas, Philly, and Buffalo. But at least I can see the clearest path for Jake Ferguson having some success in fantasy. Like Dallas Goedert, we've expressed our thoughts and opinions about how the Philly offense is going to operate this year with the run game, but then more so with AJ Brown and Devonta Smith. And it feels like Dallas Goedert is an afterthought. That sounds way more harsh than what I really intended to be. I just mean like Dallas Goedert has the most, he's the most influx when it comes to that Philly offense. I don't want to really take the investment on that. And Dalton Kincaid, I personally thought that the kind of big slot tight end in this Buffalo offense experiment was over last year.
What if I told you it's not?
Oh gosh, take the floor because I am intrigued to hear this now.
Yeah. What if I told you it's not? What if I told you that third-year Dalton Kincaid is actually the pick you need to make at the tight end position after these top 12 guys? There's a path now, right? You still look at these Buffalo Bills weapons and you're like, good Lord of the heavens, please provide a pass catcher for the Buffalo Bills. And Khalil Shakir still dealing with his high ankle sprain. I believe he's still questionable for week 1. I believe I read reports that he could potentially be ready, but high ankle sprain, those can linger. You probably would rather be cautious and not with those. Keon Coleman, is he good enough to have a massive year 2 breakout? Probably not. But like, who else? Josh Palmer? You really addressed the pass catching need with Josh Palmer this offseason? Curtis Samuel hardly got any play. You addressed it with Elijah Moore. Like, what if it is Dalton Kincaid that can still play the power slot for this team after not quite getting themselves over the top last year? Dalton Kincaid, 6th in yards after catch per reception. You brought up how important yards after catch can be for the tight end position, Ty. That's how they can rack up extra fantasy points. 6 in yards after catch per reception last year. He needs the volume to get there. I understand that. I understand he needs more volume to get there. But considering we know how long it takes these tight ends to get acclimated to the league, the Buffalo Bills need to change something. What if it's actually just getting Dalton Kincaid involved this year? Like, I'm kind of talking myself into Dalton Kincaid at like tight end 13, tight end 14 this year.
Do you know how many players scored a touchdown, a receiving touchdown on the Buffalo Bills last year?
I don't think I want to know this number. This sounds like a really gross number.
13. So I understand the argument for touchdowns for Dalton Kincaid.
I don't even necessarily think he scores touchdowns. I'm not convinced.
You're calling the volume shot here?
I think it's more the volume shot. That's what I'm willing to invest in Dalton Kincaid for. I only have him statted out for 3.5 touchdowns this year. So for me, it is a volume play for Dalton Kincaid. I think they have to change something. And if Khalil Shakir is going to be 100% ready, you didn't take this guy in the first round to sit on him and just throw the towel in on him 2 years into the league. Like, this feels like the year you should probably make sure you've got something here before you have to worry about a contract for him.
So just to sum up this whole discussion, if you take a Colson Loveland in your draft, I would rather take Jake Ferguson to be my tight end 2 behind him just for insurance, and you would rather have Dalton Kincaid. Is that fair?
Not outright, because I still think there's risk with Dalton Kincaid based on what we've seen. I would probably rather take Ferguson because I think his role is more solidified within the Cowboys. I probably can guess what I'm getting with Jake Ferguson more than I can guess what I'm getting for Dalton Kincaid. The perfect compliment for Colston Loveland, and this is how I'll transition us, is Hunter Henry, in my mind. He's the perfect compliment to Colston Loveland because he's going to get volume in the Josh McDaniels system. He's going to be probably a top 2 receiving game weapon for Drake May this year. I just want guys with limited competition on improving offenses, and I think Hunter Henry is exactly that. I think he's not going to be someone, again, who breaks the ceiling at the tight end position for you, but could Hunter Henry just somehow waltz his way in to a crap ton of, not a crap ton of targets, that's a little bit aggressive, but could he walk himself into a top 12 finish at the position this year, just kind of backdoor his way in? It seems like he could be just one of those guys with a low ceiling, but a relatively high floor.
Hunter Henry could be a volume guy, but I also see a secret path, a little sneaky path to touchdowns here in this offense.
I don't hate that. I don't hate that call.
Because again, like I called out the Drake May, why I've got Drake May as a top 10 guy, because I see an upside for rushing touchdowns there. If you're going to be throwing the ball in the red zone, if you're New England, who's going to be like a steady target for you? Is it going to be Stephon Diggs? Could be. Kyle Williams? I think jury's out on that one. I'm not willing to say
definitely
outright.
Out. I would not outright say that.
Then we're looking at like Pop Douglas and Mac Hollins, Kayshon Boutte, Efton Chisholm,
Chisholm. That's your answer. It's Efton Chisholm.
The next Julian Edelman. And you know
there
exactly why. I don't need to say why. You know why.
Go
like
Google
Hunter
Efton Chisholm if you haven't heard of him before. If this is your first time hearing of Efton Chisholm, just go Google.
Just go Google and it'll click. Hunter Henry could be like the guy in the red zone to be one of the I would be comfortable saying this. He might be one of the top tight ends in red zone targets this year. Like of all tight ends, not just like leading the team. That's because of the situation that he finds himself in here in New England.
Yeah, only 2 touchdowns into the last 3 seasons, but in 2023 he did catch 6 of them on 61 targets. He caught 9 of them in 2021 with New England on 75 targets. Caught 8 in his rookie season. I mean, I was all the way back with the Chargers, but he's a guy who has proven to be a red zone threat before, who has proven he can catch the ball. So yeah, there could be like some sneaky positive touchdown regression coming Hunter Henry's way this year, where he actually catches, 5-6 touchdowns, and that actually boosts his value and bumps him into that like top 12 conversation then. So again, it seems like this tier has been revolving around Colston Loveland because again, somehow he's at the top of this tier in our rankings. You and I would put him in the B tier, but when you look at the rest of the guys in the tier, it's about figuring out how do you add depth based on what your team already has and what your team could need. Is it a chance on explosive upside, or is it just like a guy like Hunter Henry, who could give you points on any given week and give you a top 12 finish if you need it? Zach Ertz, Kyle Pitts, I really don't want to waste too many words on them. Do you think we get a season similar to Zach Ertz from last year, where he was reliable for parts of the season, was a reliable target for Jaden Daniels? How does Deebo Samuel impact that? He's one where I don't think he could end up being a bad pick, but I also like when I click him in best ball, I'm like, I think I just clicked the tight end 15 this year at the tight end 19, and that's about all I'm going to get.
Yeah, I'm not sure if we're going to get like tight end 10 in points per game Zach Ertz again this year, just because of everything that's going on in Washington right now between like run game and Terry situation and all that stuff. So Zach Ertz is a fine pick, but I feel like the reason why I'm not ever targeting Zach Ertz at this point is because, again, the ceiling is not the same, but there is an opportunity that since he is a year older, and you do have a young tight end by the name of Ben Sinnott. Like there is the opportunity the second half of the year, like we see more Ben Sinnott, and it's kind of a even split between Ertz and Sinnott then.
Yeah, I don't want to use Trey McBride as the example, but could Zach Ertz get Trey McBrided again by Ben Sinnott? And come second half of the year, it's like, oh, Ben Sinnott, actually a nice little player for the Washington Commanders offense here. And he's starting to siphon away from an aging Zach Ertz, who's probably on his final legs in the NFL here. So yeah, I agree with that. Last question, Kyle Pitts, is it his year? Yes or no?
No.
Let's move on. D tier. I don't want to talk about these guys much at all. We might.
So
Can we just
take one
read
guy?
the guys? No. We'll each pick one guy.
Okay.
This tier is Johnny Smith, Brenton Strange, Mason Taylor, Theo Johnson, Chigazim Okonkwo, Chiggy Okonkwo, Dalton Schultz, Mike Gesicki. Pick the one guy you want to talk about out of this tier, because again, at this point, most of these guys are going undrafted in your home leagues. But if you want a depth piece, these are the only guys left on the board. Which one are you taking?
I'm going to take Mason Taylor on this one.
I am too. I'll talk about somebody else, but Mason Taylor would be my pick as well.
He is one of the cheapest guys in this range. Like Chig and Gesicki and Dalton Schultz go much later. Theo Johnson, like Mason Taylor is kind of on the earlier side of guys in this tier, but I just see, again, a path for volume. And if I'm going to be taking a tight end this late, which I surely hope you're not, but if you need a second tight end for depth because your bench can afford it, or like you're in a league that like literally takes everybody and the first guy on waivers is Efton Chisholm or somebody like that, like I feel like Mason Taylor is a nice bet for your second tight end spot, just because who in this Jets offense is going to be looking for targets. That's
not Malachi Corley. Won't be Malachi Corley.
Gosh,
see a bye to Malachi Corley.
I did not think that we were ever going to hear about Malachi Corley in the year of our Lord 2025, and somehow we did. I just can't. I can't understand it.
Sneak Malachi Corley into this.
Oh
man, Malachi Corley, a lot of potential. It seemed like coming out of the draft, but drafted to the very much the wrong situation.
I just want to say I was not in on Malachi Corley.
I'm not saying I was in on Malachi Corley. I saw the path where it's like, you know what, if you just get him the ball, he could potentially do something with it. But again, not the offense or organization really to find yourself in to get started off on the right foot. Since you talked about Mason Taylor, mine's going to be Chig Okonkwo.
Yeah,
I think I would take Chiggy out of this tier. Week 12 on last year, when you finally started to see his usage ramp up. I mean, weeks 15 and 16, he drew 10 targets and 11 targets, finished as a tight end 7 and the tight end 3 in those games. He only had one. I'm excluding his 170 reception target and reception in week 12 that went for a touchdown that also led to a tight end 7 finish. I'm going to take that one out. But when you consider the improvements of this Tennessee Titans offense, you also consider the other weapons around Cam Ward right now. It's rookie Elik Eomenor and good old reliable Tyler Lockett. Like, again, similar to Jaden Daniels last year, like we got with Zach Ertz. What if Chig is just going to be Cam Ward's best friend underneath? You got Calvin Ridley running those dig routes across the middle of the field, hit him on a go route as well. What if Chig can be your short to intermediate king and be Cam Ward's best friend, just like we saw with Zach Ertz last year? I'm not going to sit here and tell you Chig's going to give you tight end 10 in fantasy points per game, but if the Bengals are smart, if Brian Callahan is smart, you can create a very similar formula here to what you gave Jaden Daniels last season.
If you thought that Mason Taylor and the Jets had like no one else really to throw the ball to, take a look at Tennessee's depth chart.
Just take a look at Tennessee. Yeah.
Outside of Calvin Ridley, I can tell you the 3 guys, but I feel like you can make your own assumptions about like how good these guys will be this year. It's Tyler Lockett, it's Van Jefferson, and probably Elik Eomenor.
I still don't know. I hear everybody says it different.
It's going to be one of these Bijan and Bajan things. And
we're all going to pronounce it wrong for 2 years. And then finally he'll be like, nah, it's Elik Eomenor. And you're like,
yeah, Eomenor.
Eomenor, Eomenor, Iomanor. Like, you can pronounce it 18 different ways, and he'll finally tell us one that we haven't been pronouncing.
Yep. At least like in New York with the Jets, like Mason Taylor is going up against like a Josh Reynolds and like Breece Hall. Tennessee is like Chig Okonkwo has Chig Okonkwo has like a very clear path. He, again, like you said, we're not going to sit here and say that he can be a top 15 guy, but like if you need like a bye week kind of filling guy,
yeah,
Chig Okonkwo maybe worth a look.
Yeah, when we do our starts of the week this year, and we talk about, we're going to tweak it a little bit from last year. I think we'll do running back starts, we'll do wide receiver starts, and then we'll do quarterback and tight end streamers of the week rather than starts of the week. Like Chigakonkwo might be a guy that regularly comes up in that conversation as someone you can stream on any given week. I'm just triple checking where I have him in my projections. I mean, he's my tight end 19. I do have him ahead of ADP right now, so a guy who I think again could probably give you a top 15 season this year. So again, you draft a Colston Loveland and you miss out on everybody in the C tier. Well, then I don't hate scooping up Chigakonkwo as your Colston Loveland compliment, excuse me, at the end of your draft. E tier, let's wrap it out here, Ty. Kate Otten, Jawan Johnson, Isaiah Likely. I don't know. Pat Frymuth and Darren Waller may as well just like not even exist, but we got to throw 30 tight ends up here since it's a top 30 episode. Don't touch either of them with a 10-foot pole.
No.
Can I talk you into a Juwan Johnson?
Gosh, can I guess your argument?
Yeah, sure.
It's because him and Tyler Shook were college teammates. Is that your argument?
It's not my argument, but it's a fact.
Oh, jeez. Oh boy.
Look, I'm not sitting here and telling you Juwan Johnson is a valuable asset for your fantasy team. Have I taken a good amount of him on Underdog as the tight end 33? I have. When I've needed a third tight end on a build, will there be 3 or 4 weeks where Juwan Johnson just gets too good of a matchup and Tyler Shuck needs to check down underneath to Juwan Johnson a crap ton of times? Juwan Johnson might give you 3 or 4 relevant weeks this year. I'm not going to sit here and tell you that you should be drafting him everywhere. I'm just saying if I got to take one out of this tier, outside of Isaiah Likely, of course, who's mostly down in our rankings right now because of the foot injury, but Juwan Johnson might not be the worst guy in this tier. That's all I'm trying to say.
I just can't believe we're talking about guys outside of our top 25 tight ends, and this is just to meet the quota of 30.
This deserves a subscribe if you're asking me. We're out here chopping up guys outside of the top 25. Like, who else is sick enough to do this outside of me?
Look,
I love talking about tight ends.
It took every fiber of my being.
I love talking about the tight end position in fantasy football.
Oh man!
I needed to stop and just
no!
I needed to continue that sentence and I didn't. Someone was going to clip that and put that on the internet, and I would never recover from it.
There it is.
Turn it off.
That is a bad miss on that one.
That's a bad beat, Scott Van Pelt. That's a bad beat.
Somebody please clip that though. I may be talking over, so it may be Cam. So Cam, when you're editing this, please clip that out and then send it to us so that we can post it on our socials, because someone needs to expose the fraud of a host.
Fraud of a host. I want to wrap up on Isaiah Likely though. The only reason why he's down here in this tier is because we're projecting a slower start to the season. This does not mean Isaiah Likely should be going as the tight end. He's our consensus tight end 27, I believe it is, 28. That doesn't mean he should be going that low in your drafts. He currently goes off the board right around the tight end 21, 22 right now. I think that's a perfectly fine price tag for Isaiah Likely. This is more so factoring in the slower start and Mark Andrews still likely taking most of the red zone touchdowns here.
Sure. Yeah. Well, I mean, this is kind of where we were taking Likely last year, and now we're adding kind of an injury component to it. So it's not necessarily somebody that I'm like going out of my way or targeting at all.
No.
But he's going to be one to like keep tabs on, because he's going to go undrafted. And if for whatever reason we get another kind of like crazy shakeup in the tight end room in Baltimore, Likely might find himself as a pretty popular kind of waiver pickup within the first couple weeks of the season. And we know
I was just going to say he's going to be on every week 3 waiver wire video that you see. Bookmark it. Come back. I will clip this. When Isaiah Likely is the number 1 waiver wire pickup for week 3. Reports are saying he's back and fully healthy. He'll be out there on the field playing majority of the snaps in week 4. Isaiah Likely, top waiver wire pickup this week. Guarantee it. Guarantee it that one of the top waiver wire pickups first 4 or 5 weeks of the season. I'm not even going to ask if you want to close on anything else. All I'll say is like we literally just spent probably 55 minutes talking about tight ends. There is very few other channels sick enough to actually do that. and if Cameron was here, he would have maybe said 3 words this episode because Cam hates talking about the tight end position.
Hates him. He would just rather sit there and go draft Brock Bowers, draft Trey McBride, draft George Kittle. And
he'd give you some ludicrous take like Trey McBride is going to catch 9 touchdowns this year.
Or that Kyle Pitts can be a top 15 guy this year.
We're just going to roast Cam to close out the episode.
Of course we are. Of course we are. Look, nobody's out here willing to talk about tight ends in fantasy football for an hour with you all. So look, if you haven't subscribed already, make sure you do that. Hit that notification bell as well. You'll get content literally like this all season long. We've also got a lot of fun content coming this season. If you want to be featured in our bold predictions video, we are going to be posting a thread on YouTube for you to comment on, or you can get involved in our Discord over on our X as well. We're going to be featuring those in a video coming early next week. We'll also be doing that after every week as well, where we're going to get your live reactions and hot takes and react to them every single week as a way to react to each week of fantasy football together as a community. You can follow the socials as well. I already mentioned Twitter, FF Fellows over there. The FF Fellows over on Instagram, Fantasy Football Fellas on Facebook and TikTok. If you're loyal to YouTube, I'll do this bit first. If you're loyal to YouTube, Fantasy Football Fellas shorts on YouTube. I got a nice forest green hiking pair on today. So hey, I like the rotation that you've got with the colors. You don't keep it simple like me, and it's just black one day, black the next day, and then you guessed it.
I've only got like 2 pairs of black shorts. I'll be honest, and one of them has a hole in them. So, anyways, can I give a tease? If anybody's even listening, I think people tune out by the time we do the shorts bit.
Sure, go for
it. Those who are loyal enough to listen through the shorts bit, can I give them a quick tease?
Why not?
September 1st. If you're not following us on our shorts page, TikTok or Instagram, anywhere you get our exclusive short form content, September 1st. That's it. That's all I get. That's all I get.
Be on the lookout. Be on the lookout.
September 1st. September 1st. I will say something we all are extremely excited about. You and I maybe more so than, gosh, not to roast Cameron again, but you and I more so than Cameron because
dude,
you and I have been on all the planning calls and
Cam's just to wrap it up.
Just another kick him while he's down. Oh man,
jab, haymaker.
You want to follow us on our personal Twitters as well. At Lucas Wenzel on X, Tyler_Plath for Ty, Camlaw FFF for Cameron. Again, if you want to be featured in our hot takes, bold predictions video for the 2025 fantasy football season next week, check out the community post on our page. You can comment, potentially have your comment featured in that video. Your username will show up. You'll probably find that. But anyways, we will see you all next week because we'll have football next week.
Yes,
all right, football's coming next week. We'll see you then. Deuces.